and welcome to another fundamental game playthrough. Today we're playing Dungeon Brawler. Dungeon Brawler takes the Dungeon Crawler game genre and mashes it with some side-scrolling, beat-em-up, brawler arcade games from the 80s and 90s. Players are going to control a hero. You can see there's 4 of them here, and they're going to arrange them in a formation and prepare for oncoming waves of monsters, traps, and treasure. If you can survive by automatically advancing through this onslaught, you will win as a team. Each player will control one hero. In this game that we're going to play today, I'm going to play solo with a group of 3 sellswords. And you're going to see the fun and dangers that are going to be encountered in a game of Dungeon Brawler. This is brought to you by a gentleman named Patrick Peterson, and he's got this live on Kickstarter right now for another 2 weeks or so, and he's already funded. It's actually at $11,000 USD on a goal of $5,000. So he's done tremendous. He's over, over 200%, and really there's more potential for more cards and other unlocks as he hits his stretch goals and builds a real fan base for this game. So I'm excited to present this to you today. I have done a couple videos on this one already, but each time I learn a little bit more, and I found some mechanics that I had misunderstood and some rules that I might have skimmed over in the booklet. So today we're going to play through as best I can based on the new rulings that I now understand, and you'll get to see Dungeon Brawler in action. Now in the past I've played with the Cleric, and I've played with the Ranger, and I've played with the Fighter, but that was only as a prequel thing. So I'm going to keep it easy. I'm going to play with the Fighter again today. And when you play a game of Dungeon Brawler, the first thing you do is you build your character pile and your deck. So your deck is going to consist of 5 torches and 3 element cards, the element that matches your symbol. So the torches are like a attack any creature type of card, kind of like you can see your way through the darkness and make your way anywhere you need to. And the elements are ways to boost your combat in a given turn. So what we're going to do is we're going to flip those over, we're going to shuffle those, and that becomes our starting deck. So Dungeon Brawler does have a deck building aspect to it, and you'll see that we will be able to choose cards to grow into our deck. Some of the cards you can't choose as much, but overall you get to try to finesse your deck as best you can. And we're going to shuffle these up and we'll put them in sequence. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So in a game of 2 or 3 or 4 players, you would play with all the different heroes eventually. In a game with 1 player, you get the hero of your choice and then 3 sellswords that look different but all act the same. And you'll see them in play as the game goes on. You also start the game with 3 life potions. If you really want to make the game harder, you could start with 2 or 1. But I'm going to play it safe, go with all 3, see how far we can get in this game. So this is all on the left side, the party side and supply side of the table. There's going to be a discard pile where cards that I use will go, and I'll reshuffle them when I need my deck again. I'm using these shield icons as damage, but in the real game you'd have a little slider that goes up and down behind your character or your sellswords or monsters to show how much damage they'd taken. And then over on this side of the table we have the dungeon deck and we have a loot deck. So I'm just shuffling those up to show it's all random. The loot deck is going to allow you to get pieces that are going to add to your deck to make your combos and attacks stronger or give you other perks throughout the game. So those are played face up and you have full visibility to those the whole game. And then the dungeon deck also plays face up in these 4 rows, and you'll see as we play that these rows will constantly get restocked because the dungeon is long. It's 47 more cards to go through, and you kind of have to plow your way to get to the end. Now one thing I forgot to mention is I'm supposed to take off 6 cards, so I'm just going to take the next 6 cards. It's still random. 1, 2, oopsie. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You take 6 cards, and then you take this card, which is called the boss door. And this boss door is what's going to help trigger the end game. So you'll take the 7 cards that we just created there and put them on the bottom of the deck. So the fact that I flipped over those top ones didn't matter too much. The boss that you're going to fight later on will be random, so one of these 3 major bosses, and there's a possibility more bosses could be unlocked with stretch goals if you guys end up deciding to back this game. Alright, so how does this game play? Well, this game plays in a sequence of turns, a total of 8 turns plus a loot phase, and then that will all constitute one round of play. And throughout the turns, multiple things are going to happen by the players in the sellswords and the monsters and the traps. So we're just going to start rifling through and show you what happens. So there's a reason there's these numbers in the center of the table here. This is a playmat that I generated specifically for the Tabletop Simulator version. If you're playing real life, you're not going to have a fancy playmat, but the cards still go in a sequence of 1 through 8, and maybe you'd use dice or markers of some kind to indicate what number each card is. And those numbers are going to matter because you'll see on every card it's going to say a number. So in this case, the sellsword is 1 through 4. For this archer, it's got a 5 and 6 and a 7 and 8. So where you are at any given time will impact the game. So on my turn, what happens? Well, at the beginning of the game, you draw 5 cards. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. At the beginning of your turn, you don't draw cards, but at the beginning of your game, you get 5. So I've got 5 cards in my hand. These cards are mainly only useful once you get to your hero card. The sellswords can't use them as much unless a card in your hand says otherwise, but I know these cards and they do not. So with my sellsword, I have the option to move a card 1 space, this sellsword. So I can move from a 1 to a 2 or a 2 to a 1, just 1 transitional spot up until this line here. This center line is where the party ends and the dungeon begins. And it's assumed the party's in the dungeon, but they never split up or forge ahead. So I'm not going to move ahead this turn, I'm just going to play his action. So he's going to move there, so to speak. And then his action says that he can destroy any 1 card in the loot row and deal X damage to the nearest monster, where X equals the cost of the destroyed card. So you can see here in the loot, I get the choice to destroy any loot card of my choice to deal damage to the first creature that's in the dungeon. So I don't get to choose which creature. It has to be the first creature. So I may want this guy to dispose of this primal ritual, for example. So if I throw this primal ritual here, say it's destroyed, then these automatically shift over as soon as I get rid of one, and it'll flip over after I resolve this turn. And then I'm going to do 4 damage to this guy. I'm just going to put this to represent 4 for now because I know I'm going to do more damage to him. So he has now taken 4 damage because of this card cost 4, and my sellsword says he deals damage equal to that cost. So it did not defeat the monster, and this guy becomes exhausted. So I just slide him up. In this game we don't tap, we exhaust by sliding up, and that saves a lot of turning. So I like that idea that Patrick came up with there, just move it up. Easy to move up and move down. So then we would proceed to the next turn. Actually, we have to reset the round. So then I reset my loot, and I'm ready to go for the next turn, I should say. I get the words turns and rounds mixed up a bit. Let me just read the rulebook properly. Is it a turn or a round I'm referring to? Each card takes a turn, yeah. So I'm doing turns right now, and all the turns constitute 1 round. So now it is this sellsword's turn. So let's say, for example, he wanted to move, so he could move forward, which would push this guy back, and so he's 1 step further in the dungeon. Right now they're all the same, it doesn't matter, I'm just showing you how movement worked. So he's allowed to move up till 1 space, and then he can destroy again 1 card in the loot row to do some damage. So he could finish off this guy here. So let's say I want to destroy something. Maybe I want to destroy this shield that's worth 4. Actually, you know what? I'll destroy this dagger. So we're going to do exactly 7 damage. I'm going to destroy that shield, that dagger, to do 3 more damage. He'd already taken 4. So now this skeleton archer has taken 7 damage. You can see the heart with the 7 is how much life he had, which means he is now deceased. And we're just going to put him up here. We'll call that the discard pile up there. This guy doesn't really get a benefit when he kills a card other than healing himself, but he's not even hurt right now. So sellswords are good to get rid of creatures, even though they don't give you much of a perk for it. So that at the end of that turn, we slide these over, and we flip this card over. So the dungeon always gets refilled. It's constantly got more dangers in it. Now we have a dire rat that's shown up at the end of the corridor, but there's still a goblin scrapper at the beginning. But it's not their turn yet. So we go back over here. Even though this guy got pushed back, it's now his turn. So I'm going to leave him where he is, because again, all the sellswords are the same right now. And he can do damage to this goblin scrapper if he wishes to. if I want, oh, I forgot to just replenish my loot cards, so. Alright, so we'll do it like that. I'm going to say that he is not going to attack, because I'm going to save my attack for Killforge, my hero here. Alright, so he just stays put. And then we move on to the player hero's turn. So you can see there on the card, player, hero, dwarf. When you have a player's turn, you get the special perk of being able to draw a card, so that's part of how you replenish your hand. You then have the choice of just doing an action card from your hand or using the character's special ability. Keep in mind in the rulebook it says if you use a character's special ability for attacking, you cannot combo off of it. So for this example, I could get a stronger attack out of this guy, but then I couldn't use my combo cards, which are very useful at certain parts of the game. Other thing to remember is that a player hero's life is worth the number of cards in your hand. So Killforge, if he takes damage more than the number of cards in my hand, he will be injured. Whereas the sellswords have the same kind of life indicators as creatures. Alright, back to the issue at hand. Killforge wants to do what his namesake does. He wants to kill. But I'm not going to use his ability because I'm already in space 4 and I have combo cards in my hand. Oh, but I don't have enough. I'm going to go back a step and say that I did get rid of, let's say I got rid of that to do 2 damage to that goblin, because I just realized now I should have. So this goblin's taken 2 damage. He's at 4 now. So going back to Killforge's turn, what can I do? I can play a torch here. So what does a torch do? A torch lets me deal 1 damage to any monster. So I say I deal 1 damage to this goblin scrapper, so instead of him being at 4 life, he'd go down to 3 life. But because I have these combo cards, I could play both of these. And what happens when I play both of those is I do 2 extra damage for each card. Sorry, I get rid of these extra elements. They don't belong here. For the rest of the game, those are kind of out of the game there. Just put those there. And when I use my action cards, so I use those, they go to this temporary score pile. And you'll see why that matters in a moment. That's a rule that I had missed last time I played. Get these out of the way too. Okay. So I use those cards up. I deal 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 damage to this guy. I'd already done 2, so he's now taken a total of 7 damage this round, and so he is destroyed. Now when you're a player hero, you get a special ability called Spoils. In this case it says Spoils, score this card and draw a card. So when you score a card, it goes up here, and then it says I get to draw a card, which helps me later on. At the end of a player hero's turn, you can't have more than 5 cards, which I do not. I just have 4, but good to know. You can never get uber powerful. And that's the end of the party's turn, but it's not over there. We then shift all these over as per the constantly advancing deck rules. And we have to proceed to the dungeon phase, or the dungeon part of these turns. So now the dungeon gets a turn to fight back. First off, we have a trap. It says 5, destroy this card, attack 1, all heroes. So I'm on spot 5, which means this does trigger. I destroy this card, so I'll put it in this destroy pile here, and it does 1 attack damage to all heroes. When Killforge takes damage, I must discard a card. When the sellswords take damage, they just get a little knock on them, so each one of them now has a damage. So instead of being at 6, they're at 5 each right now. And then that card has been destroyed. But if that card gets destroyed and that turn is over, these advance. And this is the part that I kind of missed last time I played this playthrough, is how quickly everything just keeps on happening. So then we get to a mimic chest. That's next in the quarter, and it says 5, destroy this card. So I'm going to destroy this. Each player draws a card and then scores 2. And that might sound like a good thing to draw a card, but then I'm losing 2 cards from my hand that go into this pile here, which means that Killforge's life is now down to 2. But I do have 6 cards in my score pile. So what happens next? Well, we have an empty spot in the dungeon row, and that's just not allowed. So these advance. One thing I forgot earlier is this dire rat had advanced, and they come into play exhausted. So whoops, that was a miss. But we hadn't encountered him yet, so still safe. This guy here enters exhausted. So it just means that they are not going to trigger this turn. They have to refresh first. So where are we now? We're back to the dire rat. He is on space 5. So if you can see here on his card, it says attack 3 to the hero with the fewest cards in hand within range 2. Okay, so what does that mean? Well, the hero with the fewest cards in hand, range 2, would also be considered the hero with the least amount of life. So they kind of go for the weaker target. It makes sense. A rat doesn't want to fight something big and strong. They want to pick off the weak things. And so if you look at it in terms of health, this guy has 5 health. Killforge only has 2 because that's what I have in my hand. So what's going to happen? Well, this rat is going to attack me for 3 damage. I have to discard cards, 1 equal to the damage dealt. So I just discarded 2 cards. And I can't take the 3rd damage, which means that I am effectively collapsed. What happens when I collapse? I have to move to the back of the pile and everybody else shifts forward. But not only that, I am out of commission next turn and have to heal myself with one of these potions. So the rat did what it needed to do and it's exhausted. Then we go to the chest. It's not on spot 5, so nothing happens. And then these guys, nothing happens. So there we have it. We have gotten to the end of the basically the action turn, or action phase, and we're going to move on to the loot phase. So what happens on the loot phase? Well, I get to buy cards if I like. I'm just going to clarify if I'm only allowed to buy 1 or if I can buy multiple. So in any, you may buy a card from the loot row. So it says a card, it doesn't say multiple cards, so I'm allowed to purchase 1 card and then all these go to my discard pile regardless. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cards in my loot pile, so I could buy anything that's worth 6 as long as a color in my hand matches. So I cannot buy purple or yellow right now because I don't have a purple or yellow card. I've only got red cards and colorless cards. So I could buy a 3 or a 5 flare. So let's say I'm going to purchase the 5 flare. That actually goes right to my hand. And then all of these cards here I'm going to group together and they are going to go into my discard pile. Alright, so there we have it. I've had my loot phase, everything has had their turn, and now we're on to round 2. And in the round 2 we in sequence refresh everything. So first I'm going to refresh Killforge. In order to refresh him, he has to quaff a potion. When you quaff a potion, it goes away for good. You don't get to use it again. Or no, you flip it over. There's a chance that maybe somehow, some way I could get it back. But I'll flip over a potion, and that puts him into regular status, but exhausted. He doesn't get to do anything this turn, but he's alive, and he's going to fight next round. Then we refresh everything else. So everything else moves down, showing that it will have an action phase again this turn. And I forgot to replace this at the proper time. Oh no, I didn't. Yeah, that happens now. Okay, so there we are. That was round 1. We're on to round 2. What are we going to do? Well, might as well reset our deck. Shuffle that up. Put that into place. And we already did Killforge's turn. He had to quaff that potion. So then we're off to our cell swords. We can see here they've got a couple dire rats and a mighty human cultist here. Now these guys don't have an option of who to attack. They always attack the first guy, so I guess we're just going to play pummel those. They all have 1 health, so it doesn't really matter if they move or not. So this guy here is going to try to pick off this rat. He can destroy this Quake card and do 5 damage to this guy. Now one thing that you saw earlier, the cell sword, if he defeats a monster, he removes the damage. So he has effectively healed himself as he destroys this little rat here. Redemption for killing Killforge. And everything advances. Because that's how we roll. Come on, come on. Come on forward. Alright. Doors don't enter exhausted, so this cellar door, you'll see how that plays out in a minute. And then we go to this sellsword's turn. So this sellsword decides he's going to attack this dire rat as well. This one's a little bit stronger. It's got a 6. I think the last one had a 5, so they do have different values. So what is he going to do? What could I do for 6? Well, I could plan ahead to do a 4 and a 3 instead of a 4 and a 4. And I haven't used any action cards, but I will use this 4. And we're doing 4 damage to this dire rat. So that's just going to say we have done 4 damage. Then this guy gets to do the same. and he's going to do 3 damage right there. Whoops, don't want that in my hand. So he does 3 damage, which means a total of 7 damage, and the dire rat is dead. He goes to the discard pile, and because this guy dealt a lethal blow, he gets to heal 1. Then everything goes forward some more because the dungeon doesn't stop. But if you look here, we have a door, and you can't see through doors, you can't see behind doors. You need to get to that door and open it, and we're not at that door, so this one stays face down. Interesting little mechanism that Patrick put in, really cool. Alright, I forgot to replenish my loot. Sometimes it can be hard when you're playing on the computer to remember everything, but I'm sure in real life you'd have these be pretty obvious if any of your rows were missing stuff. Okay, so all my sellswords have done their actions, and so then we proceed to the dungeon turn. So the Mimic is in spot 5, so when it's in spot 5 it triggers, destroy that card, each player draws a card, you remember this, and then scores 2, and scoring is not option. Scoring means you put 2 cards from your hand over here, so I don't get a choice. Now what I don't know is if I'm allowed to have 0 cards. I can't remember that rule, so we're just going to take a quick look here to see. Collapsed heroes, attacking. If the player ever has no cards in hand and must discard more, so I have no cards in hand, but right now I don't have to discard more, so he's not dead yet or collapsed yet. So that Mimic did its toll on us. Everything else moves forward. The dungeon door, or this, stops us from seeing what's going to happen behind these doors right now. And so then we move on to this guy. Now he's in spot 5, so he's going to attack for 2 damage all heroes within range 2. Not just the first hero, but both heroes. So he's a little bit evil because he can do more damage than we like to. So they both take some damage from this mighty guy. He's called a human cultist. So he's done his deed and he becomes exhausted. This doorway doesn't trigger until it's in spot 5, so it just stays as it is, which means we don't know what's behind that door yet. We got to go open that, but that'll happen next round. The loot's already been refreshed. We're on the loot phase, and the only thing I've scored this turn is 2, and I only have red. So is there any 2 red? No, there's not. So I cannot buy anything. If you can't buy anything a turn, that's okay. These will go to your discard pile for another day, and you get to draw a free card instead. And I believe on Killforge's turn I should have been able to draw a card. I forgot about that. Automatically plop a potion. Oh, draws 5 cards and flips their hero back over. I missed that, so I would have drawn up to 5 cards, which means I would have discarded those 2 still. And so I would have been at 3 cards at the end of that round, and then 1 more now. Sorry if I'm confusing you, just kind of going back in time. If a hero collapses, and you get a kind of a 5-card bonus. So, and I guess that's fair because we saw what could happen if we didn't get that bonus. No, I forgot. Alright, so where are we at now? Now, drawing our card there. And so then we would go to... I drew my card early. So these guys should all be refreshed now as we go into round 3. Everything refreshes. So you can't see those. This is refreshed. Killforge is refreshed now for the next turn. So here we are starting off on a clean slate, and we get to start with Killforge. So I already drew that was my card for last round, and now I draw no, I would have ended at 3 cards. So yeah, just draw my card for him this round. Now I'm on to Killforge's turn. Does he want to move to space 4 and attack for 2 to the cultist, or is he going to hang way back here? He's going to keep it safe. He'll leave his sellswords out in front of him. He drew his card already, so we're going to lay down a torch and combo 2. So he's going to do 3 damage to this cultist here. So we're just going to mark this, say I did 3 damage, and he's exhausted. We go on to the sellsword number 1. He can trash one of these to do some damage to this guy, and he can move forward. So he's going to move forward 1 and take the hit and push this guy back. and you could do some big damage here. You can drop this 4 here to do 4 damage. So now this guy has taken 3 damage from before, plus 4 more. He's taken 7, so he's only got 2 life left. Then we go back, and this guy gets to go, and he's going to try to do 2 damage by getting rid of a card. Now remember, these constantly advance, so I'm looking for something for 2 or 3 to kill him off. So we'll throw away this axe for this guy to kill off this guy for the last 2 damage. So the cultist goes away. This guy's ability heals him 1 shield, and the door advances. So we're at the door now, finally. Then this guy gets a turn, and we're just going to say he's going to step backwards, but he cannot attack anything because there's nothing to attack right now. So we go to the dungeon phase. Now this one's special. It says when you get to spot 5, destroy this card, and then what you have to do is flip all face down dungeon cards up and refreshed. Which means if they're creatures, they still get to attack this turn. But since I destroyed the door, we have to advance those and also open this up. But this creature, it doesn't count with that dungeon door because it wasn't there when it activated, so it enters play exhausted. Alright, here we go. What are we going to do now? Well, this guy gets his chance to attack, a zombie puker. He's going to attack for 2 damage, the furthest hero in range 2. And then he would move 1 space to the right. So he's actually going to puke and then retreat. Nice move. And do 2 damage to the guy 2 spots away before he did that. So wham wham. Acidic puke. So because this guy moved, this becomes the next card to activate, and it says 5, destroy this card and do 1 damage to all heroes. So we've had that one before. We're suffering through it again. Everybody suffers from that wall. Our hero must discard a card. Ouch. And then we advance, 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 flip, advance. I forgot to do earlier. Flip. Alright, so lots of monsters in this dungeon. We're going to take an absolute beating this turn. These sellswords could die and this game could end very soon. But sometimes that's what happens in the dungeon, right? So what's happening with the archer? Well, he gets to attack 2, the furthest hero in range 2, and then he's going to move his card 1 space right. So he's another hit and runner. So he pushes that forward, he moves right, and he was here, so he's going to do 2 damage to this guy here. Running out of shields on my side, that's not a good thing. Alright, so none of these have taken 6 damage yet, but they've all taken significant damage. And then finally we go to the Earth Elemental. He's not exhausted, so if he's on spot 8, he's going to do 2 damage to the heroes in spaces 2 and 3. So if you do 2 damage to this guy, he dies, and 2 damage to this guy. He's not dead, but he's in rough shape. Now, from what I understand, if a sellsword dies, again, he moves to the back of the row, but I don't think you get the 5 cards that you get when your hero dies. But I'll just double check that rule book there. That's just collapsed heroes. So collapsed ally. It doesn't specify drawing any cards, so it just flips over. He takes damage separately, differently. Alright, so that was that guy's turn. 2 damage to everything in 2 and 3. And there you have it. We are in one deadly dungeon. We don't have a lot going on. We've got 2 cards that we could score with. There is nothing in the 2 value, so these are just going to go to the discard pile. And I'm going to draw a card instead of buying a card. Okay. And then we're on to this guy. He has to... Oh, we'll refresh everybody first. Refresh, refresh. And we're on to round 4. We have 38 cards left on the deck, so slow going, but I don't know if we're going to make it. So this guy flips, exhausts himself, and quaffs a potion. We're on to Killforge. We draw a card. Not a lot of cards in our hand. You gotta be careful. But what he could do is charge forward and attack for 2 damage, and he would get to score a card. Kind of putting myself at risk. I would lose a card and be close to the action. So we're not going to do that. Let's take a look. These guys have some range attack, but they can't hit my guy yet. Oh, they will hit him. I gotta be careful with my cards in hand, see, because if I discard them, then I have less life. Then my guy could die anyway. Yeah, he's in a tough spot there. So if he goes back one spot, he's allowed to move up to one spot, and in this case pushes this guy forward. And then I could just attack with a torch for a single damage, just to get this guy in the range of 2/4s. So attack with a single torch. Yay. I'm not going to combo it because my next cell sword and my next cell sword are both going to attack this guy for 4 each. So we're going to do 4 and 4. The loot is going to move forward. Dun dun dun. And then this guy will be dead because he's taken 9 damage total. And then this guy gets to heal because he was the last one to do that damage. And everything advances again. All the creatures are getting closer. Oi, more creatures. No break for us. No door, no nothing. So now we go into the dungeon turn. Attack in spot 5. He's going to do 1 damage to all heroes and move this card 1, 2, 3 spaces to the right, which means everything else moves forward. Another hit and runner. So 1 damage to everybody. 1. This guy is dead. So again, we're already getting close to the end of a game without a hope of winning. These guys have to automatically advance, and this guy runs to the back of the pack while he's collapsed. So that was this guy's turn. Now we're at the archer. In spot 5, he's going to attack for 2, the furthest hero 2 spots away. And then he says he moves his card 1 space right. So again, hit, run. This guy is going to do 2 damage to heroes in spots 2 and 3. So 1 damage, 2 damage, and I have 2 cards in my hand, so those are both going to get discarded. Ouch. But not collapsed yet. And this dire wolf, if he's in spots 7 or 8, which he is, he's going to move 1, 2 spaces left, and he's going to push those guys back. Alright, he doesn't get to attack. So the dungeon row is done, the party row is done. The loot, I've only got 1 card, so that doesn't give me anything, so instead I will draw a card. And then we'll just reset everything. So reset, or refresh, I think is the official term for Dungeon Brawler. Yeah. So this guy at the start of the turn gets exhausted, flips over, and quaffs our last potion, which means if one more guy dies, the game is over. Killforge's turn next. We're going to draw a card as per his ability. Since we don't have any cards left, we'll flip these over, and that'll be our new discard pile, or draw pile. So he's going to charge forward, and he's going to do. You may score a card. It says may, so I'm going to choose not to, and then he's going to attack the nearest monster. So he's going to attack that monster for 2. Just use that to mark 2 for now, just to remember. And this guy gonna step back, run away. And this guy has 6 life left, so I'm not gonna be able to kill him anyway. We'll get rid of this 5 or this 4. And here, destroy that. So he takes 4 more damage. He's now up to 5 damage, so he's got 3 left. And this cell sword will swap places there as well. And he's going to do, he only has to do 2 damage. Actually, these all were supposed to go forward. I'm not going to be able to get that anyway, so we sacrifice that to do the last 2 damage. And then this guy heals 1. Alright, so all 3 cell swords have had their attack. Killforge had his attack. They moved around a little bit. The dungeon row automatically advances before they start. Oi, this is going to be death. So we start with the Earth's Elemental. He's going to do 2 damage to heroes in space 2 and 3. So good thing that other guy backed away, otherwise he'd be dead. But it might not matter anyway. Then we go to the Skeleton Archer. He's going to knock and shoot an arrow. He's in spot 6, so he's going to do 2 damage to the farthest hero in range 2. 1, 2. He's going to do 2 damage to Killforge. I've only got 2 cards in my hand, so those get discarded. Ouch. Then we go to the Imp Acolyte. He's in spot 7. He's going to do 3 damage to the furthest hero in range 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So this guy is going to take 3 damage. We're real tough shape here. All my cell swords are on their last legs. I have no cards in hand, and we've used all our potions. In the Dire Bear, if he's in spot 8, he's going to move forward 1, 2 spaces, push back these guys. Alright, so I'm not scoring much here. I don't even have anything in my score pile, so that's hard to win a game that way. Everybody's alive, everybody refreshes. Some are critically injured, but, you know, them's the break in this mighty dungeon. And even though I have the advantage of going first, I don't think we're going to survive this round. All these guys have full health, so if the first thing I do is blow up a card here to do 5 damage to this 9, and then this guy goes and he blows up a 5 card as well, so now that guy's taking 10 damage. So that's dead, and it was the second guy that did that, so he heals 1. And the third guy, these have to advance first, because that's how the game works. So this guy is the last cell sword, and he's fighting a guy with 10, pretty dangerous, so we do 3 damage to him. 1, 2, 3. Ouch. Alright, and then Killforge gets to attack. He has no hope of killing this guy. I draw a card on Killforge's turn. Not enough to do anything significant, so I can say I'm moving to space 4 even though I'm already here, and I will do my 2 damage. So now he's taken 5, but he's still very much alive. In the monster's turn, Dire Bear is in spot 5, so he's going to attack 3 to the hero with the fewest cards in hand. So again, the weakest creature. This guy has 1, this guy has 3, and this guy has 1. So we're kind of tied there. Who would be considered the fewest? So we'll say Killforge is closer. He takes the beating. Eek. So everybody else moves forward. He flips over and is exhausted and collapsed. So that was this guy's turn. Then the Skeleton Archer, he's going to do 3 damage to the furthest hero in range 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So this guy is dead. We'll just flip him over. Then this guy would go, he's in spot 7. So in spot 6, 7, 8, he will attack 1, 2, 3, the furthest hero in range 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So he's going to attack for 3. So this guy's also collapsed. And then the Dwarf Berserker, he would move 2 spaces left, shift those over, and he's done his turn. So where does that put us? The loot should have reset. I forgot about that again. I've got nothing to score. And so the first thing we would have to do is quaff a potion, and then we'd have to quaff a potion, and then we'd have to quaff a potion. Really don't have the ability to do that because we've used all our potions this game. So unfortunately, Killforge, forging ahead, trying to plow his way through this mighty dungeon army, has set upon too many obstacles and faced defeat. We're sorry, Killforge. It was a valiant effort. You did what you could. You charged where you could. But you're going to have to try this another day, perhaps in one of the backers of this new Kickstarter's solo games in the future. Or maybe you're going to play this game with multiple players and really see what it's like to share in the defeat and plan out what victory is going to be like, kind of like pandemic style. You can talk and plan and make those important decisions that could influence the game. So there you have it. That was Dungeon Brawler by... Oh, I'm drawing a blank now. Patrick Peterson, I believe his name is. Running on Kickstarter now. So what's cool about this game? This game is cool because it doesn't stop. The adrenaline keeps on going. These monsters keep on coming. These items keep on coming. The damage keeps on hitting, and the attacks keep on happening. It's non-stop, fierce dungeon action. It's not easy. You can see what happened there. Cell Swords got quite a beating there. And if we were playing with actual players, they would have all been discarding cards left and right. So deciding when to play cards, when not to, when to activate special abilities, and when not to, all is decisions you have to make to survive in this devious dungeon that we have here. And thirdly, I just like the imagery. So the mechanics of going through the dungeon is cool, but also the imagery of this side-scrolling action, right? If you've ever played Castlevania, or what's that one that you play? You're like little Lancelot, and once you get hit once, you lose all your armor, and you're running around half naked, and you get hit again, and you die. Anyway, that game as well as a side-scrolling action RPG fantasy. So this reminds me of that, because each of your characters is in a row, going forward, killing a creature, and moving forward, Castlevania style, until you can get to the end of this deck and fight one of these super heroic, or not heroic, but super dangerous monsters that get even more dangerous once you've enraged them. So that's what I like about the game. I haven't played it enough to give any honest critical feedback for what I wouldn't like about the game, because in order to see how well a game plays, you need to play it at least a few times following the rules 100%. In my first 2 playthroughs, I missed several of the sequencing rules, such as when to flip cards into the dungeon, what cards go into my score pile, and things like that. So I think this is the first time I've played it 100% to the legit rules. Thank you to Patrick for helping me clarify that. And I'm sure I'll play it a few more times and be able to get a better actual fundamental games review in the future. But I like what I've seen so far. I had fun trying to battle my way. I felt like I was kind of overwhelmed, and maybe that's how you should feel in a Dungeon Brawler. And that's how I felt. So if you enjoyed this, go check out the Kickstarter. It's live for 2 more weeks. Today is June 12th, so plenty of time left to get in on that action. And if you want to know anything more, just feel free to email the game creator, Patrick Peterson, or find him on Facebook, or find him on the comments of the Kickstarter. All right, we're signing off.